my dear friends, and welcome back to another Bad Batch video. Today I want to share something really huge with you that I recently discovered. In one of the Bad Batch trailers there is one frame which we haven't yet seen in the season. It's a very brief moment which could potentially tell us where we're headed next week for part 2 of the season 1 finale. So I want you guys to take a look at this still image. It's a sunset shot of Bracca with the Scrappers Guild watching over. Now we've been taken to Bracca in episodes 7 and 8, but we haven't seen a scene quite like this one. For one thing, it's of the evening time and we've only seen daylight and nighttime, but we haven't seen the sunset like this. If it is a still image of a scene from this season, then it's quite revealing of the plot for next week. But if it isn't going to be used, then I suppose this is a nothing burger, but I doubt it. So we must wonder, if this scene is still to come with just one episode to go, why would we head back to Bracca? The answer is pretty straightforward, and it all surrounds Crosshair. In part 1 of the finale, which was an excellent episode, we learn from Crosshair that he's had his chip removed. Very clearly, Hunter and the others do not trust him, and the big question is whether or not Crosshair is telling the truth. Now that they managed to stun him and take him away with them, I think they'll escape Kamino somehow and take him to Bracca, where they had their chips removed with the help of Captain Rex. Tech is going to run a few tests and scan his brain, and then we'll know for certain if Crosshair was telling the truth or not. I think in the next episode, we're going to get another mind-blowing revelation about Crosshair, and if we are going to Bracca, we might even run into a big cameo. Now that the Empire has effectively destroyed Topoka City, they'll be aware that the Bad Batch escaped. I can imagine Rampart will be on their tail, or he might even hire someone to go after them. To be honest, I don't know how the Bad Batch will escape Kamino, but I guess that's why part 1 ended with such a cliffhanger. Maybe Sid is going to call upon someone to come and save them, or they'll get away just in time. And just quickly on this note, I've seen a lot of people talk about how the destruction of Kamino is the end of an era, especially for prequels and Clone Wars fans, and it's absolutely true. Now I want to specify that it's only Topoka City that was destroyed, and not the whole of Kamino. In fact, I haven't seen anyone else mention this, but Kamino does have 4 other major big cities, and all of them had cloning facilities, but most of them were experimental and for non-sentient monstrosities. The other 4 major cities were Durham City, Research City, Satellite City, and Tamura City. But for the sake of canon and the direction of the story going forward, I think it's safe to say we're done with Kamino altogether, and episode 15 really was a final farewell to a planet that we've all come to know and love over the last 19 years since Attack of the Clones. So the Bad Batch didn't only kill off Lama Su and Torn Way, but now Nala Se is owned by the Empire, and Topoka City has been obliterated and lit up like a freaking Christmas tree.
Merry Christmas, you filthy animal.
It seems like Lucasfilm really doesn't like the Kaminoans, but all joking aside, we knew going into this series that this was inevitable, that the Kaminoans would be killed off and Kamino would be occupied or destroyed by the Empire. Having said that, as I said, Nala Se did survive and she's owned by the Empire, and I think she's going to have a much more important story in season 2. So now with Kamino out of the way, I think the primary focus of the final episode of this season is going to be Crosshair. Now because we now know there is going to be a season 2, the end of next week's episode is going to set up a sort of continuation for the story with new adventures and characters. And of course, season 2 comes out next year. I can't help but feel that next week's episode is going to end on a very frustrating cliffhanger. But who knows, it could be a satisfying ending to the season, but I would not put my money on it. Honestly though, I think whatever's in store for our final episode, it's going to be massive, with implications that affect other parts of the Star Wars universe. I really hope we get to see Captain Rex again next week, and as I put forward in a previous video, he's probably trying to save Wolf at this point in the timeline. I don't think it's a coincidence that they reintroduced Gregor, and now that we've had one, we have to see the other. But as I say, that might come next season. Now speaking of season 2, I thought this would be the perfect time to talk about what we can expect from another season of The Bad Batch. Going into the show, I think many people assumed that this was going to be a limited series, but considering the fact that we are getting more than one season, we might wonder what in the world is going to happen next. Well, here are some ways I think season 2 is going to continue the story. In some way, shape or form, it's going to connect to Crimson Dawn. The Pikes have been brought back, we've met Roland Durand, and I think it's going to connect in some way to Darth Maul. Or should I just call him Maul? Another thing that we're going to see in season 2 is much more of Sid, and she's going to reveal a few more secrets of her life and how she acquired all of the artifacts in her office. Sid is a rather cagey individual that doesn't give much away unless she feels like it or she has to, and it's definitely a possibility that she has a lot more in her past and in her present that she's not revealing. To be fair though, the relationship that she has with the Bad Batch is business, so if it has nothing to do with their transactions, then they really don't need to know. The only drawback is that there's a good chance that anything Sid sends the clones out to accomplish could be something that involves her personal life or past, or maybe even both. One of these missions that we're going to see in season 2 could connect to the greater Star Wars universe in a significant way. Dave Filoni certainly has something up his sleeve and enough substance for an entire second season. Something else I think we're going to see is the Bad Batch getting involved with the early rebellion, especially through Captain Rex. But it goes without saying, if they do become friendly with the rebels, they're not going to want to be beholden to one group or another. They're a batch of brothers and that's it. No sort of allegiance to the Empire nor the rebels. The next thing we're likely to see is much more of Fennec Shand and Cad Bane. Both bounty hunters have become fan favourites in their time, and they would be a welcome addition to season 2. The only drawback would be wondering how far forward the story is going to move and whether Cad Bane will still be available for use. Fennec Shand won't be a problem, the only question is whether she'll decide to work for the Empire or if she's going to end up showing that she does have some principles. Next up, I think we're going to see Boba Fett. He has to tie into the story in some way, and they've been teasing him all season. With one episode to go, we might get him in the finale, but if not, definitely next year. Another important way season 2 will continue the story is through learning a lot more about Omega's true identity. We know that she has first generation Django DNA, but it's clear there's much more to her. This was teased again in the most recent episode when she took Clone Force 99 to Nala Se's secret lab. And finally, my friends, we're going to find out what happens to Crosshair. I've always thought that he would go out by sacrificing himself, but now that he's been rescued, anything is possible. Everyone wants to know if Crosshair's going to be welcomed back into the group, but the level of mistrust is pretty deep, and it's probably not going to be a black or white answer that we're looking for. I guess we're just going to have to wait and see what the series has in store for us. But now, my dear friends, I turn it over to you. What do you think is going to happen in the final part, and what do you think we can expect from next season? Let me know all of your thoughts in the comments down below. If you enjoyed today's video, please be sure to give me a big fat thumbs up, subscribe to the channel if you're brand new, and a huge welcome if you are, and also be sure to give that bell a good old tickle to be alerted every time I post a new video. Apart from that, I'm Star Wars Meg, wishing you all a phenomenal rest of the day, no matter where you dwell in the galaxy. Have a good one. I'm pleased to announce that I now have a second channel that is dedicated to my Star Wars music mixes. As many of you know, I'm a musician and composer, and as such, I create about half the music for this channel myself. After several requests, I've decided to create an entire channel dedicated to it. It's called Meg's Cantina, and on there I'll be uploading Star Wars ambience and chill mixes that you guys can relax to. They're going to be inspired by themes from across the saga and all contain animated artwork to accompany them. If that sort of thing appeals to you, then go over to Meg's Cantina or click the link in the description down below and make sure to hit subscribe. Bear in mind that channel has no impact on this one, so if it's not your cup of tea, don't worry whatsoever. Thank you all so much for your time.